YouTube, and welcome to this month's Horror Talk, and it's Friday the 13th. And yes, this is one of two Horror Talks that we're going to have this month, but I thought, it's the last Friday the 13th of this year, so I thought, why not have a discussion on the franchise as it is Friday the 13th. So here we go. So of course, as you all know, we had Friday the 13th, a franchise that started back in 1980. And the film was written by Victor Miller and directed by Sean S. Cunningham. And they both made one of what would be the most successful slasher franchise of all time. One of them. So, the first film, it starred Adrienne King, Kevin Bacon, Betsy Palmer, and Ari Lehman as Jason. And this was, like in 1957, some camp counselors were murdered, and we then got and then the camp got closed down. Many years later, in 1980 or 1979, they're attempting to reopen the camp for the summer, and whilst the counsellors and that are all getting ready and stuff for the big summer ahead, until the kids come to off duty. So it starts off as what we first knew as a revenge thriller. Everyone getting picked off one by one in this film. There was one person who warned them not to go, and that was Ralph, who did that classic, "You're doomed! You're all doomed! Well, you're going to get blood, aren't you? It's got a death curse." He was like the town's lunatic. So, so as the film progresses, we get this unseen killer, and we don't know who it is. But then it reveals to be none other than Mrs. Pamela Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer. And, she's killing because her son Jason drowned in the lake, apparently, back in 1956. Back in 1957. So yeah, the murders at the beginning of the film was in 1958. Jason drowned, 11 years old, and she was making sure the camp doesn't open, so no other person will suffer that fate. Got my fidget spinner here. So she is stopping the camp from being opened. Now, Jason, we don't see him in this one much. We see him in a flashback sequence when he's drowning, and then we see him at the end of the film in a dream sequence when Alice, the final girl, played by Adrienne King, is saved by the police after she has a dream of Jason dragging her under the lake. So that's one of them. We also have, Jason early in two sequences, played by Ari Lehman. Now, Jason, he was bald, deformed, weird looking, and that was down to a condition he had, which I believe is called hydrocephalus, where fluid builds on the head, is it? Causing the head to swell, causing hair loss. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what Jason had. Ooh, excuse me. So, that was proven successful. But with them killing off the antagonist, they had to get a new one. So for the sequel, about 1 year later, Friday the 13th Part 2 began. This time, Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham did not have any involvement in writing or directing this film. It was written by Ron Kurz and Phil Scudery or something. directed by Steve Miner, starring Amy Steele, John Fury, Steve Descalwise or something as Jason, and Warrington Gilliat or something as Jason Unmasked. So yeah, we see Jason in this one, and he is wearing a potato sack on his head, pretty much looking like the killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the Phantom. They just went with that. Jason didn't don the iconic hockey mask until part 3, and in this his weapon of choice were various ones, including a machete and gardening tools and other appliances. There's one kill I like in it where he puts a machete in a guy's face who's in the wheelchair, who's about to get laid, and Jason, of course, he's driven by this premarital sex thing because it's what got him killed when the two counsellors were at it. So yes, Friday. So we had our final girl. I can't remember her name now, played by Amy Steele, I think it is. And there's a bit where she gets Jason when she puts on his mother's jumper, because Jason keeps his mother's severed head, Pamela's severed head, in his lair, where, because in the first one, Alice beheaded her with the machete. And also in this one, Jason actually kills Alice in the opening scenes. So her death is very sudden, which is a surprise. How Jason was alive and how he drowned, but for some reason I don't think he did drown. In fact, I know he didn't get killed. She must have faked his death so she can have more of a reason to kill. So that was part 2 in 1981. Next, we go to the third installment in the series. Part 3. So, yeah, Part 3 came along in 1982, and this was, again, directed by Steve Miner. This time, though, it starred Dina Kimmel, Paul Kratek or something, and Richard Brooker, who was in the role of Jason this time. This one, Jason got the iconic hockey mask and the machete that he is known for, and yeah, he goes out on a huge killing spree, and is like all badass and everything, and so with this being a third installment, apparently the killer always becomes superhuman in the third one. We also saw Jason's mother again, Mrs. Pamela Voorhees, as like a zombified water person, and basically the finale of part 3 has that similar ending to part 1, because I think it was meant to be like a trilogy, and of course it ended up not being a trilogy. We even saw Jason how he got his iconic slit in the mask when he got axed in the forehead by our final girl in the third film. So then, pretty much after that, the franchise was off screen for about a year, until we were treated to a fourth installment titled The Final Chapter. This time it was directed by Joseph Zito, Kimberly Beck, Peter Barton, Corey Feldman, and this time in the role of Jason was Ted White. Now, this people say is the best one. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favourites. I like to call part 4, 5 and 6 is what I like to call the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, because it has him as the main protagonist, throughout this one, always played by a different actor in all 3. So in the 4th film he was played by Corey Feldman, and he actually killed Jason at the end. He was like the first person to kill Jason, and then that was pretty much it. So we weren't expecting any more Friday films from then on. But fans wouldn't stay away, and Paramount kept making money from this franchise, so Part 5 came along, and that was titled... Oh, and also, I like Jason in this, Ted White's portrayal of the character. Again, he's slightly different when he's unmasked, but yeah, still, I think he did a great job as Jason. In the 5th film, it was titled A New Beginning, which was directed by Danny Steinman, starring this time John Shepherd in the role of Tommy, Marlena Keenerman, and Shavar Ross, and Dick Wyand. Now this one completely abandoned the whole Camp Crystal Lake. They were at some rehabilitation place called Pinehurst, and was Jason alive? He was definitely haunting Tommy Jarvis in his mind, constantly tormenting him in the mind. So he had hallucinations of Jason. Excuse me. God, I'm yawning. Can't stop. So yeah, we have him facing what turns out to be Jason again, out on a killing spree. Now, early on in the film, one of the kids got hacked to death by an axe by one of our teens in this film, the Troubled Teens. And I'm thinking, out of all the teens that get killed, how the hell did he not get his comeuppance with the Jason guy? Because it all falls back at the end when we find out that the Jason Voorhees imposter was in fact the local paramedic Roy Burns, who at the time was a big mystery on who he was, but when it was revealed at the end that he was Jason, after he got impaled and fighting in the finale, and of course they were trying to keep they were trying to avoid a lot of supernatural elements in this one before the next one. And it turns out the kid that got killed at the beginning was Roy Burns' son, and that was his motivation. He was a loner, kept himself to himself, and studied the whole Jason case. Anyway, that film ended where the legacy of Jason lives on in Tommy, and also they were planning on having a whole new part there where Tommy is the antagonist for the Friday series. But of course, the fans could not get enough of Jason. By the 6th film, about a year later, 1986, we go to Part 6, Jason Lives, and this one is written and directed by Tom McLaughlin, starring this time Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis, and Jennifer Cook. And Jason in this one is played by 2 actors, C.J. Graham and Dan Bradley. I think one of them was a stunt coordinator, the stunt double or something. But in this one, this is my favourite in the whole series, Part 6, because it has a great soundtrack from Alice Cooper, and Jason is brought back to life from the dead by a jolt of lightning after Tommy jabbed the body with a metal rod, which acted as a conductor to restore Jason and give him a whole Frankenstein's monster thing. So we got that one, and yeah, dropping my fidget spinner there. Tommy was facing Jason one last time and wasn't gonna let him beat him or anything. He was gonna go out and face Jason head on, and yeah, I like that one. There's also an extended bit at the ending, because at the end Jason is at the bottom of the lake chained to a rock, and it ends by playing Alice Cooper. He's back, the man behind the mask. In an extended ending of Part 6 in the book, in the Part 6 graphic novel, we actually see Jason's father, Elias Voorhees, go to the grave of Jason. and does not find Jason's body in there. It was Tommy's friend at the beginning of the film that got killed, whose body gets put in there, because we see it happen. So yes, part 6, my favourite one. So, 1987, no Friday the 13th film, but in 1988 we were given a 7th instalment titled Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. This one was directed by John Carl Boucher or something. I can't pronounce that name. And it starred La Part Lincoln, Kevin Blair, and also this was the start of the Kane Hodder era of Jason, because from Part 7 all the way to Jason X we have Kane Hodder in the role as Jason. So in this one, our main protagonist, I can't remember her name now, but she's also the final girl. She has telekinetic powers. So basically this one is Carrie versus Jason, or the closest we're ever going to get to that. Now in this one, Jason is like out of the lake after being imprisoned down there since Part 6 ended, and he's all rotting up and everything. This is one of the decent looks of Jason, I think, with him having a bit of his jaw exposed there from the hockey mask getting caught on the propeller on the speeding boat in the Part 6 finale. Kane Hodder, he just made Jason what it is, you know, he became the Jason for me. And he is probably by far my favourite Jason. I just wish he had better storylines to work with. Part 7 is not my favourite sequel. I do find it a little bit cheesy with the whole telekinesis thing, but this is the part of the series where it starts to get all supernatural and what have you and stuff. But yeah, some of the kills, a lot of the kills were good, including the infamous sleeping bag one where he gets one of the girl in it and just like smacks him against a tree, which is probably iconic now. So yeah, 1 year later, 1989, you know, as the 80s was in its final year, Paramount gave us their final installment in the series, and that was Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Written and directed by Rob Helden, starring Jensen Daggett, Scott Reeves, and of course we had the return of Kane Hodder again as Jason with a brand new look. You know, after looking all rotted up and everything, he's like all sort of regenerated and wearing like a boiler suit all soaking wet. And yeah, this is called Manhattan. Now they wanted to get this series and sort of think, let's take this somewhere out of Crystal Lake. So they went on a boat, the SS Lazarus. Jason was woken up early in the film by some teens on a boat, and yeah, Jason then started to pick off the kids one by one. Now this is more like Jason Goes to Manhattan, because a good portion of the film is actually set on the SS Lazarus, and I think the title's a bit misleading there, because, you know, Jason isn't actually in Manhattan for very long. I think in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, we see Jason in Manhattan, and, you know, he doesn't really take Manhattan, you know, because it's like, well, it's like he doesn't strike fear into the people everywhere. They're all, you know, it's like everyone in New York's minding their own business and that. He crashes a diner and that, and then next thing they're in the sewers, final two people, and yeah, not the best one. And yeah, Yeah, definitely not the best one. So after that, the disappointment that Part 8 gave us, New Line was ashamed of Jason. And I don't know why, because Jason made them a lot of money and that. So, yeah. After that, we were given a 9th film, though. It still spawned one, and that was Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Yes. Directed by Adam Marcus and starring John D. Lee May, Carl Keegan, Erin Gray, Alison Smith, Stephen Culp, Stephen Williams, and Kane Hodder as Jason. Now, after this, New Line Cinemas purchased the rights to Jason after the successful Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Now, this one just... God, what the hell. In this one, Jason, the full physical form of Jason with Kane Hodder, is in 2 sequences. The opening sequence and the finale. The middle, he's just passing around from body to body. And, yeah, I don't think New Line did it any favours. In fact, I found Part 8 more watchable than this one. I mean, we have some kills in there that are good, but, it's just, the elements of, is just, Jason's just not there, physically. And then he has a sister that we never knew about, Diane Kimball, and stuff, and yeah, it's just mental. Also, not to mention, at the Voorhees household, they spell the name Voorhees wrong with 1 O. There's an Easter egg, though, that I do like from the film, where we see the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, giving us a hint, wow, could that be connected to the Evil Dead franchise? Anyway, the only other interesting part of this film is the ending, where Jason's mask is seen resurfacing from the sand until a hand with a bladed glove, a stripy red and green sleeve, comes out from the ground and grabs the hockey mask and drags it down to hell, setting the events in motion for Freddy versus Jason. Oh yes, the next one. But of course, it was 10 years before they actually picked up on that. And between Freddy vs. Jason, both psychopaths had another installment each, Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Jason X, which was also Kane Hodder's final performance as Jason. Jason X, where do I begin with that? Well, let us begin with that one. Jason X. So 2001 came along and we had Jason X. The only good bit for me was Kane Hodder's portrayal of Jason. Other than that, the rest of the film I thought was... But yeah, Jason X, it was directed by Todd Farmer. No, written by Todd Farmer and directed by James Isaac. Starring Kane Hodder, Lexi Dios, I can't read the name, Lisa Ryden, Chuck Campbell, and Jonathan Potts, I think, yeah. So this was the 10th film in the series, and the X basically represented the number 10 because it was the 10th installment in the whole Friday series. And look, just don't get an Earthbound franchise and take it into space. It failed with Hellraiser 4, it failed with Leprechaun 4. Why would they take Jason into space? It's beyond me. So yeah, Jason is in space, and the only good bit about it is Kane Hodder being Jason, killing some students in space that are going back to Earth 2 because Earth 1 is dead. And at the beginning of the film, we see Jason in Crystal Lake Research Facility, and yeah, he does a few kills and that, and then gets frozen in cryostasis because they thought they can't kill him, so they can only contain him by freezing him, and for 400 years he is frozen, till it backfires when them students dig him up, unfreeze him, and he goes out on a rampage, along with one of our protagonists, who were in the beginning. I can't remember her name now, but she gets reanimated from the film, in the film. And also, what the hell was that all about? In the finale, Jason got his head blown off and was actually killed till those little robot ants came on him and resurrected him, making him a bloody badass cyborg. That was too cheesy for me. Then it ended where he crash landed on Earth too, and his hockey mask was seen at the bottom of the lake, but was he dead? I just don't know. Okay, so 2 years later, after a 10-year wait, the next film that came about was Freddy vs. Jason, directed by Ronnie Yu, starring Monica Keena, Jason Ritter, Kelly Rowland, Catherine Isabel, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, and Ken Kirzinger as Jason. So, Freddy vs. Jason, where do I begin on that? Well, first of all, Kane Hodder did not come back for this one. As much as he loved to have come back for this one, they wanted a more bigger, more taller actor, and I think it worked, but the role was for Kane, you know. So, next. Because it was Kane Hodder's dream to be Jason again and fight Freddy Krueger, but no, they didn't. Also, they got a very inexperienced director, Ronnie Yu. Now, he directed Bride of Chucky, but he never seen a Child's Play film. He only saw the first installments of the Nightmare series and the Friday series, so he had no good knowledge of the characters. So, first of all, they should have got a better director. All of Freddy vs. Jason could have been a better film, but it just, they didn't make it good enough, and I mean, it was okay, it was watchable, I was Team Jason all the way, and as a younger kid I enjoyed it, but looking at it now, I just think it could have been so much better. So, yes. I mean, at the end we got Jason rising out of the lake, and for a second we all thought Jason won, but then we had Freddy's head, because his head got cut off and he winked at us audiences. So basically that was a draw. I think there was alternate endings where they both died, Jason wins or Freddy wins, but they went with the ending where they both had a draw, to keep it fair, I guess. So that was Freddy vs. Jason, but of course that wasn't successful enough to spawn a sequel, and so I mean they did do a sequel in the comics, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, where Ash Williams from The Evil Dead fights them both. And then we got 2009, Friday the 13th, the remake, directed by Marcus Nispel, starring Gerard Padalecki or something, Danielle Pennebaker, Aaron Yu, Amanda Wright Hattie or something, Travis Van Winkle, and Derek Mears as Jason Voorhees. Now, this was actually a very good remake. I actually enjoyed this one. It had elements and plots of the first 4 original films all mashed up into this film. It had a long opening sequence. It paid homage to Jason's potato sack on his head as he wore that for one half of the film, and then he got the iconic hockey mask. I enjoyed this remake, and I think Derek Mears did a fantastic job as Jason. He really did. And the kills some were the same, some were original, but yeah, it worked for me. It really did. And the remake, I'll definitely recommend the remake, because I was surprised by it. So yeah, and of course then there was another Friday the 13th reboot that was meant to come out, but it kept getting delayed and delayed,
And it was supposed to be coming out today on Friday the 13th, but it got scrapped. So yes, Friday the 13th, the remake. Yeah, but there's been another attempt now for 2020 for another Friday the 13th remake, for it to come back. I just don't know about it. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this horror talk. So Horror Talk will be back on Halloween for a Halloween discussion special. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of the Friday the 13th franchise? Do you like it? Let me know all that down below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. So, till tomorrow, go and have nightmares. 31 will be back with a double bill.